me, working with horses is never about dominance or dictatorship. It's about leadership. And it's about helping them feel safe, helping them understand their job, feel good in their work, and nurturing their natural curiosity to want to participate and to start building work ethic for positive outcomes. When I first took Sirenity into the round pen, my only two goals were to set my boundary with space and to start encouraging her to look at me, to draw into the center, to show a little bit of curiosity and engagement. So just having the very basics of creating my space and encouraging some initial engagement with her simplified everything. I didn't go in there asking her to do 10 things. I didn't go in there with any pressure or any expectation. And when I create my space, it's not about chasing her out of it. It's about creating enough energy around me that she understands to stay back. From there, I like to start doing some drawing exercises to draw their attention in. And anytime that they show me some softening or some engagement, I reduce my body pressure, my energy. And that is done as simply as shrugging my shoulders or going from a big, strong posture with the energy of the flag to turn to a 45, turn my belly button away, turn my eye away, and remove the pressure. So she starts to understand, when she shows some softness or some engagement, she gets relief with that, and she starts to seek that comfort. I spent a lot of time really just listening and observing, just while giving some suggestions to help her find some softness and to start building her threshold between rest and digest and fight or flight so that she wasn't so easily triggered. We often had a few people watching as well, and it was interesting to see how she would observe them on the outside of the round pen and her expressions. She actually showed quite a bit of aggression or frustration when these people were close to the side of the round pen. So that was kind of fascinating. I think it triggered some feelings. It made her feel a little bit insecure and likely triggered those uncomfortable gastrointestinal symptoms. One afternoon when we had Sirenity in the barn and one of our vets came by actually to do some work on another horse, it was really fascinating. The vet came in the far door, which was 60 feet away from Serenity's stall, and she came up the far aisle and she got out her equipment and actually started shock waving on another one of our horses, and Sirenity started colicking. Just the stimulation, the energy in the barn of, an outside person coming in, maybe the noise of the shock wave, just the intensity, the electric atmosphere. Next thing you know, she's pawing and rolling and showing discomfort. Her threshold between sympathetic and parasympathetic was so tiny, and she was so easily triggered that she, like we say, she was almost chronically in fight or flight. I got several weeks into working with Sirenity in the round pen, and she was doing really well. She was really engaged. She was understanding my personal space. She was still testing the boundaries a little bit and asking questions, but I was really, really consistent with my responses, very clear with my boundaries, and very, very careful with my expectations. I needed to build them very slowly and, to not overwhelm her, but also to be able to progress. As her work started to advance, and we introduced a surcingle and different tack, and asked her to think a little more, she was starting to be a little more triggered again and flipping into that fight or flight. And we started to see the colic episodes start to increase. And I mean, our sessions were 10 or 15 minutes, very quiet, low pressure, but it was still enough that we were getting concerned. So the next steps were to have a gastrointestinal specialist come out to take a look at her. We wanted her stomach scoped so that we could check for ulcers and check for function. We wanted to make sure that we did everything possible to support her health-wise before we progressed with any more pressure of training and development. The scope revealed a very happy, healthy, clean stomach. She had no ulcers. Her motility and digestion appeared normal. There were no concerns, so we were a bit surprised. We actually totally expected to see something, and we're scratching our heads again. We also had her reproductive system checked out. We had her ovaries ultrasounded. We were looking for any abnormalities, tumors, cysts that perhaps could lend to any of these behavioral issues, or hind gut pain or hind end pain. And everything ultrasounded very normally as well. About 20 minutes after we were finished her stomach scope procedure, Sirenity colicked quite badly. Given her history and all these complications and expenses and, you know, an uncertain future, she certainly wasn't a surgery candidate. So we had to do everything we could to resolve the colic on farm, and just keep our fingers crossed that she would get through it. We took her into the arena and hand walked her a little while. We gave her Banamine, and she ended up laying down. She wasn't rolling and thrashing, she was laying very still. And because of a previous observation I made with how Sirenity was able to get herself sorted from a previous colic episode, what we did was we left her in the arena, we shut the door, we removed all stimulus, all pressure, and just let her be. And I would say about 20 to 30 minutes later, she got up on her feet, she shook, and she was totally fine. We pushed on with Serenity's development. We had checked a lot of things off the list, you know, all the health concerns, anything we could address, we did. So I started taking steps forward with her training. We looked into some postural work for her as well, ways that she could, you know, stretch her abdominal muscles, stretch her psoas muscles, and we got into some pretty fascinating stuff, doing some bridge work. I have a bridge in the arena, and I taught her to put her front feet on the bridge. And she stood up there, she dropped her head, and she did the biggest sigh and just yawned and yawned and yawned. These big releases were really fascinating to watch, and you could see that it was very comfortable for her, that she really liked this posture. So then I started using that posture and standing on that bridge as a reward. We would do 5 minutes of work on the line and do some little changes of direction, some soften, some bending, giving with her top line, and using her ribs and getting soft. And then we would go over to the bridge and let her stand and stretch. And it was fascinating. She would almost make a beeline for this little bridge, which is only, I don't know, maybe five inches up off the ground. But it was just enough to change her posture a little bit, to maybe make her a little more thoughtful of her own body, to bring some self-awareness, and with that came relaxation.
Things really started to smooth out. Her sessions were becoming more and more consistent. I think as more time went by with her on that, anti-inflammatory diet and the sucralfate and the great leadership and her feeling safe and that she can trust us and her getting the proper rest that she needed, things just got better and better. So I moved on to starting some backing. Started presenting the idea of laying over her back and sitting on her, which she was incredibly receptive to. I did all the groundwork, all the backing work myself. I didn't want a second person in the round pen because I didn't want any added energy that might affect our relationship and how far we'd come at the time. She was still pretty fragile. Within a couple of days, she was happily walking around the round pen. I was up in the saddle. She was happily taking direction. She did at one moment question direction a little bit. It was a good test because you're going to have a little bit of pushback or conflict at times or lack of understanding. And it was important that Sirenity could handle some pressure being put on her and not just be overwhelmed or revert to any dangerous behaviors. So, I asked her to move forward and move to the left or change direction, and she decided that she wanted to go right. And I said, no, we're going left, and made it comfortable to go left. And she did one little rear, and I corrected her. And made it a little bit uncomfortable because, that kind of behavior is, it can escalate again, and it's dangerous, and they need to know the boundaries, and they need to know the difference, good answers and the not so good answers, so that you can start shaping their future answers to training questions. So all of this time that I spent backing and doing her preliminary under saddle work, I did it all bitless. I didn't want any added tension or anything that would add any brace. And she was working so beautifully in a rope halter and really understood to soften and to follow a feel. I was very comfortable to move forward with the riding work without a bridle. About 4 months into our relationship, I felt that Sirenity was ready to have a new rider. I wanted to see how she would manage with someone with a slightly different approach or a different energy or
sometimes even a little less clear expectation. So I was ready to start, asking some new questions and getting a different rider on her and seeing how she handled it, how she felt if we were going to be faced with any new challenges. She was really very good with a new rider. I was in the arena most of the time, so she had me as her lifeline and her grounding, her person. And she did everything right. She went through her walk, trot, canter. She did have a little bit of a period that I think the rider was a little unsure how to help her through something. So that immediately made Sirenity lose her trust and confidence in the leadership of her rider. So it was very minor, but it was interesting to observe. And it just really, made it very clear and very apparent that Sirenity would need support of a 100% confident leader for quite some time. Summer came around and it was time to start taking Sirenity outside, working with her in the sand ring, broadening her horizons, teaching her about hacking and riding with other horses. And she stepped up to all of these tasks beautifully. She was interested and eager and happily participated. And at this point, we had not seen any laying down, any signs of colic for, a good 6 or 8 weeks. From here, I feel like she had learned everything that a 3-year-old should learn in their 3-year-old year. We're 6 months in to Sirenity's rehab process, and she has come an incredibly long way and showing so much promise for a much brighter future. Her owners realized that taking her back to their farm had a risk of triggering old emotions, old memories. I mean, horses really have memories like elephants, and don't forget anything. And even the feeling, perhaps, in an old environment that did cause so much discomfort, would be enough to set her backwards. So they made the decision that she needed to be sold, and approached me with putting some thought into that and how we could put that together. And after a lot of thought and consideration, I needed to speak my mind. I didn't feel selling her. I didn't feel she was ready to be sold at that time. I felt like perhaps revisiting the idea when she was 4 would just give her that much more time, another 6 months to settle in, to continue to heal her digestive system, to build relationships with people, and to have a bit of a buffer so that, if anything did happen that was triggering, that she also had way more positive experiences to fall back on. I had a heart-to-heart with her owners and shared what I thought would be, probably one of the few paths that will end up in success for this horse. So it was decided that I would assume ownership of Sirenity so that I could give her the time and support and the program that she needed to give her the best chance at having a successful, healthy, happy life. The last 6 months, Sirenity has been a couch potato. She has enjoyed turnout and her sleeping stall time and grooming and some people time, but some time to herself as well. Very, very low pressure. A couple of weeks ago, I had her teeth done again. She did have them done last spring, and her wolf teeth removed, and we made sure her mouth was comfortable, of course. So it was a little nerve-wracking, knowing the last time she'd been sedated, she'd colic so badly. But it was something that had to be done and had to happen, and we were prepared for any outcome. She was excellent for the vet and her tech to handle and give sedation. She was cooperative in her dental float, and she recovered perfectly. There were no post-sedation concerns whatsoever. That was a really reassuring experience to see that her body could now handle the stress of a strange vet coming in, that she could handle the sedation, and that it caused no digestive upset whatsoever. So that was really encouraging. So what I take away from this, and what I hope people take away from it, is to think outside the box a little bit. You know, horses don't just choose to be aggressive just for being aggressive. There's always an underlying reason, and sometimes it can be really difficult to figure that out. But it is well worth putting in the time and trying to get to the bottom of things. Healthy relationships with horses starts with leadership that provides comfort. From there, builds trust and respect and a great relationship, which in the end can be a friendship, but it's got to start with leadership. If you approach your horses with a little more mindfulness, slow everything down yourself, leave all your stress, your work stress, your life stress at the paddock gate, and step into the paddock and be truly there, you'll have so much more success with your interactions with your horses.